Welcome to NYNJPA Weather, your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. After a few days off for a very bad cold and sinus infection, I'm back, and it looks like the winter weather is finally leaving. For now. Here is our latest water vapor satellite picture as of 9 a.m. And basically the storm that produced another 6 to 12 inches of snow in Oklahoma City, cutting through much of the southeast and off the southeast coast, is now exiting out into the Atlantic. Now, a few days ago, this storm was projected to potentially produce a major impact along the mid-Atlantic coast. However, luckily, because the pattern just wasn't in sync to produce such a scenario, in fact, really much of the mechanisms you would need for a major winter storm just are not in place. As such, the storm went right out into the Atlantic, and the most of an impact that this storm produced was an overcast cloudy sky this morning over southern New Jersey. Perhaps a snow flurry developed over some locations that just weren't reporting, but really not much of an impact whatsoever. So this storm exits. Behind it, a little bit colder air. Again, temperatures around 30 degrees for a high. But really not much of an impact from this storm. So what can we expect the rest of this week and into this weekend? Well, we can see with our current surface map, the dominant influence throughout much of the United States is an Arctic high pressure system that is dropping down towards the Gulf of Mexico. Now, when a high pressure system of this nature drops towards the Gulf of Mexico, eventually a major warm-up is on the way. And the reason why is because eventually most of the region will have to get on the backside of this high pressure system. So for much of the rest of this week, going into Saturday morning, high pressure will be in control, producing dry conditions but still relatively cold weather conditions as well. For the highs tomorrow will still range around freezing, upper 20s over the interior, but the point is that we'll remain below normal for this time of year. Notice the area of low pressure that is over the northern plains. This is a moisture-starved clipper that will move through the eastern Great Lakes and move towards New England. Could be an isolated shower on Saturday afternoon, but otherwise not much of an impact at all. Again, by Saturday, we'll see a marked difference in the temperatures as this high pressure system that's diving towards the Gulf Coast moves more towards Georgia and Alabama. As a result, we'll get more into a southwesterly wind, and we'll warm up into the lower 40s. This is not above normal, it's actually near normal. So we're actually going to reach near normal weather conditions, and with no major precipitation event on the way through this weekend, the good news is that when this snow melts, it won't be overwhelming with the potential for flash flooding. So it's going to be a slow melt of the snowpack. Look for variable clouds every so often this weekend as the snowpack melts. Could be some foggy mornings as well. But overall, a very nice stretch of weather is on the way. So what's going to cause our pattern to change to a much warmer regime? Well, let's look at the Pacific. What I'm showing here is the water vapor of the Pacific Ocean as of this morning. And I have circled a very strong disturbance in the Gulf of Alaska. This strong disturbance is what we call a positive EPO pattern. Basically, it means a huge upper level low or a powerful storm is going to be moving towards the west coast. Now, this is important because it shifts the whole storm track to the north over North America. You get a deep trough cutting down through central California, possibly even southern California, and that creates a ridge over the plains. And that ridge shifts the entire storm track to the north and leads us to a relatively warm pattern developing. So the major pattern change has nothing to do with the storm that's exiting out in the Atlantic, but instead the storm that is developing over the Pacific Ocean. So clearly we are in for a much warmer pattern. How warm? Well, let's look at the latest European model guidance from the Penn State EWAL. This is the 500 millibar pattern on the European model guidance for Wednesday evening. And one huge important change I want to point out is that we are finally in a positive Arctic oscillation and North Atlantic oscillation regime. What that basically means is that our upper level low, our polar vortex, is focused more towards northern Canada, which means that the weather pattern over the Atlantic Ocean and over parts of eastern North America is more zonal, or even more of a ridge over the United States, because all the cold air is bottled up over Canada. Meanwhile, we have what's called a negative PNA pattern along the west coast. That basically means that there is no ridge along the west coast. There's a huge trough. And notice the orange lines. That's the warm air coming in from the desert southwest and from the southern plains, moves up towards the plains, and then moves east towards the mid-Atlantic. So clearly this is far different than any other pattern we've seen so far this winter. It's not the end of winter, but it certainly is going to be a very nice 10 to 12 day break from the stormy and cold weather conditions we've seen going back to November. So clearly we deserve a break, and we're going to get one. At 850 millibars, you can see the impact of this upper level pattern with a lot of warm air building over the plains. Notice that our freezing line, that's this black line here, is to the north and east of the northern mid-Atlantic, and with the exception of Connecticut, of course, it always hangs on a little bit with that cold air. But overall, we're either near or slightly above normal. The majority of the warm air is going to be from basically the southern mid-Atlantic back south and west through the southern plains. Northern plains could warm up really well under a Chinook wind. So clearly we are moving towards a much warmer regime. And notice all the cold Arctic air is bottled up in Canada, and it's not moving south anytime soon over the next 10 days. And of course, in this type of regime, high pressure is generally in control throughout much of the time period, starting from basically Sunday all the way on through next week, and with high pressure basically to the south or to the southeast of the northern mid-Atlantic. Warm air that is over the Gulf of Mexico and along the Gulf Coast will eventually move north into the northern mid-Atlantic. So basically after Saturday, say goodbye to the 30s for the next several days, at least for the next 10 to 12 days, and temperatures more aligned with the 40s and possibly even 50s by the middle and end of next week. So clearly we are in a much warmer regime and a nice break from any of the winter storms that we've seen over the past several weeks. So enjoy it while you can. Thank you for trusting in NYNJPA Weather as your weather source for the northern mid-Atlantic. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Have an excellent day.